One of the most common forms of kindness is self-sacrifice. We give of ourselves our time, our energy, our resources without hesitation, believing that by doing so, we serve others and, in turn, achieve moral superiority. However, Stoic philosophy warns against the dangers of excessive self-sacrifice. The Stoics, particularly Marcus Aurelius, advocated for living in accordance with nature and focusing on what we can control. Self-sacrifice, when taken to an extreme, leads to neglect of one's own well-being. By constantly putting others' needs before our own, we create a toxic cycle where our mental and physical health deteriorates, leaving us with little to give in the long run. Epictetus reminds us that we are not called to serve others at the expense of our own growth. He writes, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." If we sacrifice our own peace and energy for others, we are actively choosing to suffer. In a world where kindness is often equated with being liked, the temptation to please others becomes overwhelming. The Stoics, however, were not concerned with approval from others. For them, approval from the outside world was irrelevant to their inner peace and sense of virtue. When you constantly seek the approval of others through acts of kindness, you inadvertently hand over control of your happiness. You become addicted to external validation, and with every act of kindness, you expect something in return, be it praise, affection, or recognition. The Stoic response to this is simple. We cannot control the opinions of others, only our own actions. By living for others' approval, we dilute our own sense of purpose and self-worth. A genuine act of kindness becomes distorted into a transaction done not for its own sake, but to secure a reward. This, in the end, leaves you feeling hollow, as you are constantly giving without receiving the peace that true kindness can offer. While kindness is generally associated with helping others, there is a fine line between being kind and enabling destructive behavior. In the pursuit of being helpful, we may find ourselves enabling others. Toxic habits, whether it's tolerating manipulative behavior, excusing irresponsibility, or allowing others to misuse our time and resources. Seneca, in his writings, speaks about the importance of recognizing when kindness becomes harmful. He states, "If you want to be kind to others, do not allow them to drag you down to their level of ignorance. When we allow others to exploit our kindness, we become complicit in their downfall." Stoic wisdom teaches that it is more virtuous to help others by teaching them self-sufficiency rather than enabling their dependence. True kindness isn't about making people comfortable in their mediocrity, but about empowering them to rise above their challenges. If your kindness is enabling others to continue down a destructive path, you are not helping them, you are harming both them and yourself. One of the most insidious dangers of kindness lies in the emotional investment we make in others. When we give emotionally, we risk draining ourselves of the very energy that sustains us. A Stoic approach to emotional detachment emphasizes the importance of not becoming overly attached to the emotions or outcomes of others. Consider the example of a person who constantly pours their emotional energy into others, seeking to help them overcome their struggles while the intent is kind. The emotional toll can be devastating. If you are not careful, your own emotional well-being begins to erode as you carry the weight of others' burdens. Marcus Aurelius advises, "Don't waste time on what you can't control. Focus on your thoughts, actions, and reactions, for this is where your power lies." The Stoics remind us that emotional balance comes from within, not from our ability to fix the problems of others. True kindness comes not from being endlessly emotionally available to others, but from acting in ways that respect both your well-being and theirs. Another key danger of kindness is the belief that we can control the outcome of our acts. When we perform an act of kindness, we often do so with an expectation of reciprocity or a positive outcome. The Stoics, however, remind us that we can control only our actions, not the results of those actions. As Seneca writes, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." When you invest your energy in acts of kindness with expectations attached, you open yourself up to disappointment. People do not always respond in the way we anticipate. If you do not receive gratitude, recognition, or the desired outcome, your well-meaning actions can leave you feeling hurt and disillusioned. To avoid this, the Stoics teach the importance of acting with indifference to the outcome. When you perform an act of kindness, do so without the expectation of any return. This detachment allows you to act freely, without the burden of disappointment or resentment. Kindness without boundaries is not virtue, it is self-neglect. One of the most important Stoic principles is the need to establish personal boundaries in our interactions with others. By respecting our own needs and limits, we ensure that we are not giving in ways that are harmful or unsustainable. In a world that demands more and more of us, it is easy to overextend ourselves in the name of kindness. But by failing to set limits, we expose ourselves to burnout and resentment. The Stoic response is to be firm in knowing your boundaries and not allowing others to overstep them. As Epictetus says, know the difference between what you can control and what you cannot. Recognize that while you can control how much kindness you offer, you cannot control how others respond to it. It is your responsibility to protect your own energy and well-being. When kindness considering what is just or fair, can lead to the destruction of both parties involved. The Stoic ideal is to balance kindness with wisdom, ensuring that your actions are not just kind, but also just in alignment with nature's laws. Conclusion: the balance of virtue in the end. The Stoic perspective on kindness is one of balance. Kindness, when rooted in wisdom, is a powerful force for good, but when it is applied indiscriminately, without discernment or boundaries, it can ruin your life. The key to avoiding this destruction is to understand that kindness is not an obligation, it's a choice. It should be offered when it aligns with your values and your own well-being, and it should never come at the cost of your peace, your energy, or your sense of justice. As we move forward, let us strive to embody a kindness that is wise, measured, and rooted in the Stoic understanding of what truly serves both ourselves and others. The greatest gift we can give is not blind generosity, but the wisdom to know when and how to offer it.